The storm had passed only an hour earlier, but the land still smelled of wet dust and broken branches. The sky above the wide Texas ranch was slowly clearing, revealing long streaks of gold behind heavy clouds. Elias Ward, a quiet rancher in his early 30s, rode his old chestnut horse along the east fence line, checking for damage caused by the sudden downpour. He lived alone, far away from town, and storms always made him nervous about broken fences and wandering cattle. The ground squished under the horse's steps as water pooled in small dips. Elias scanned the area, expecting to see fallen posts or loose wire. Instead, he saw something he had never imagined: a figure sitting on the ground near a broken fence, holding one leg tightly with both hands at first glance. It looked like a bundle of clothing blown by the storm. But as he rode closer, he saw the shape of a person, a woman, soaked, dusty, and trembling lightly. His brows tightened in concern. People rarely wandered this far out unless they were lost. He slowed the horse and called out, "Ma'am, are you okay?" The woman looked up. Her hair was wet from the rain, sticking to her face. She tried to smile, but the pain in her eyes showed clearly. She swallowed and tried to adjust her weight, but she immediately gasped and held her ankle again. Elias quickly dismounted and stepped toward her. "What happened?" "I fell," she said with a weak voice. "I slipped on the wet ground. My ankle. I think something's wrong." She winced again and breathed slowly, trying not to panic. Her clothes were dusty, like she had walked a long distance, and her backpack lay beside her. Elias knelt in front of her, careful not to frighten her. He had a calm face, the kind people trusted even during hard times. "Let me see," he said gently. She hesitated but nodded. The moment he touched her ankle lightly, she squeezed her eyes shut and whispered, "Please." "Just make it quick." Her voice trembled, not from fear of him, but from the sharp pain shooting through her leg. Elias paused. For a second, those words hit him strangely, making him freeze. He was not used to people depending on him. He lived a simple, quiet life, speaking more to his horses than to strangers. Having someone look at him with that level of trust unsettled him in a way he did not expect. But then he saw her discomfort. Her ankle was swelling fast. Mud covered her shoe, and the redness spreading around the joint worried him. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to focus. "Marina," she replied softly. "My car broke down miles back. My phone died. I tried to walk to find help, but the rain came fast. The trail became slippery. And you fell," Elias finished for her. She nodded, embarrassed. "I didn't think it would be this hard." Elias inspected the ankle again, touching only where necessary. "It looks sprained," he said. "You can't walk on this." "I have to," she said. "I have to keep moving." "I don't want to be a problem." "You're not a problem," Elias replied firmly. "You're injured. You need help." She blinked at him, surprised by his steady tone. Not many strangers would speak with such simple but solid certainty. He stood slowly and looked around. The rain had turned the dirt road into deep mud. Driving her back to her car or the nearest town would be nearly impossible at the moment. Even his truck could get stuck if he tried to force through the soaked paths. He rubbed the back of his neck. This situation was far more complicated than he expected when he left the house that morning. "You need shelter," he said after a moment. "You can't stay out here." Marina tried once more to stand, holding onto a broken fence post. The moment she put weight on her injured ankle, she gasped and collapsed back to the ground. "I'm sorry," she murmured, frustrated at her own weakness. "I really didn't want to trouble anyone." Elias shook his head. "You didn't choose to get hurt, and I'm not leaving you here." He reached down and offered his hand. "Let me help." She stared at his hand, uncertain. Trusting a stranger was never easy, especially when she was alone in the middle of nowhere. But she saw something honest in his expression, a softness in his eyes, and a genuine worry that made her feel. For the first time since her fall, not completely alone, she placed her hand in his. Elias didn't pull her up normally. Instead, with surprising gentleness, he slipped one arm behind her back and the other beneath her knees. Her eyes widened. "Wait! What are you? You can't walk," he said simply. so I'm carrying you." Before she could protest, he lifted her easily. Marina reached instinctively around his neck, afraid she might fall, but Elias held her steady. She felt embarrassed, but also strangely safe in his solid, steady grip. Her voice came out small. "I didn't mean that kind of quick." Elias almost smiled, but kept his focus on the path. He placed her carefully on his horse. "Hold the saddle horn," he said. "I'll walk beside you." Marina nodded, still in shock from the sudden help. Her ankle throbbed, but at least she wasn't putting weight on it. The walk back to his ranch house took time. The wind was cold, and water dripped from the trees, but Elias kept checking on her every few minutes. "Are you warm enough?" he asked. "Yes," Marina said softly. Her voice steadied with every step he took. "Thank you. You don't need to thank me," he replied. "This ranch is the closest place around. Helping you is just the right thing." Marina studied him. His hat was old, his shirt damp from the rain, and his boots muddy from hours of walking fences. He looked like a man who lived through rough weather often, someone who dealt with nature's challenges quietly and without complaint. "You live here alone?" she asked. "Yeah," Elias said. "Mostly just me and the horses. My parents used to run the ranch before me. It must be peaceful," she whispered. "It is," he said. "But today's a little different." When they reached the ranch house, a simple wooden home with a porch and a wind chime dancing in the breeze, Elias helped her off the horse and carried her up the steps. Inside, the house was warm and smelled faintly of coffee. Marina felt a sense of relief so strong she almost teared up. Elias set her down gently on the sofa. "Stay still. I'll get a towel and something cold for the swelling." She nodded, watching him walk across the room. His movements were steady, thoughtful, and surprisingly cautious for someone who looked rugged and strong. When he returned, he knelt again, placing a folded towel under her foot and applying a cold pack to her ankle. Marina winced, but didn't pull away. "Sorry," he said. "I'll be careful." "You're already being careful," she replied. "More than most people I know." He didn't comment, but his ears reddened slightly. As he worked, Marina looked around. The house was neat, with simple furniture and shelves filled with old photos of cattle shows, rodeos, and family gatherings. A sense of quiet history filled the room. A life lived far from noise and rush. Elias finished securing the cold pack and sat back. "You should rest for a while. When the roads dry a bit, I'll take you to a clinic." Marina shook her head quickly. No, I don't want to trouble you more. I just need to wrap it and maybe walk." He finished. She hesitated. Elise's voice grew firm but gentle. "You already tried that, and it made things worse." She lowered her eyes. "You're safe here," he added softly. "You don't have to pretend you're okay." Her throat tightened. She looked at him and whispered again, but this time with a different meaning and tone. "Please, just make it quick." She wasn't asking him to hurry through her pain. She wasn't asking him to carry her again. She was asking him to help her without worrying too much, to handle the situation without making her feel weak. Elias understood now. He nodded. "All right, I'll take care of it. I promise." For a man who spent most of his life working alone, those words felt heavy, heavier than lifting her from the trail. But he said them anyway, because something about Marina's tired eyes and brave voice made him want to do more than he normally would. Much more. Part 1 ends. With Elias standing up, thinking quietly to himself. He had planned only to check fences today, but fate had placed something completely different on his path. A stranger who suddenly needed him more than anyone had in a long time. Elias had never brought a stranger into his home before. The ranch was a quiet place, far from highways, towns, and people passing by. Yet now Marina sat on his old sofa, her injured ankle resting on folded towels, looking tired and worried, but finally out of danger. The soft ticking of the wall clock filled the room, while the wind outside pushed gently against the windows. Elias stood near the kitchen counter, watching her from a distance. He didn't want to crowd her, but he also didn't want her to feel alone. He wasn't used to caring for injured guests, and every small decision felt heavier than normal. Marina noticed his hesitation and gave him a faint smile. "You don't have to stand all the way there," she said softly. I'm not going to break. Elias cleared his throat, embarrassed. Just wanted to give you space. You've had a rough day. That's one way to put it, she said with a weak laugh. Storm, fall, pain, and now I'm in a stranger's house. If it makes you uncomfortable, he began. She shook her head quickly. No, you've been kind. I'm not uncomfortable. Just a little overwhelmed. Elias relaxed a little, though his hands still fidgeted at his sides. He moved closer and sat on a wooden chair near the sofa. Tell me honestly, she asked. How bad does it look? He glanced at her ankle again. The swelling had grown, the skin around it turning red and slightly purple. It's not broken, he said, but it's a strong sprain. You shouldn't put any weight on it, Marina sighed, rubbing her forehead. I should have been more careful. You were walking alone in a storm, he reminded her gently. Anyone could have slipped. She looked up at him, her expression softening. Thank you for helping me, really. Elias didn't know how to respond at first. Compliments or emotional words always made him awkward. Instead, he nodded and stood. Let me get you something warm to drink. You're cold. He walked to the kitchen and filled a kettle with water. Marina watched him move around, quiet but purposeful, like he had lived this routine for years. The smell of coffee and warm wood drifted through the house, calming her nerves. As the kettle heated, he placed a blanket over her legs. She lifted it slightly and smiled. You think of everything. I try, he said simply. When the drink was ready, he handed her a cup of warm tea and sat back down. It'll help with the cold, he said. Marina wrapped both hands around the mug, letting the heat soak into her palms. So what's the plan? She asked after taking a sip. How do I get help from here? Elias paused. This was the question he had been avoiding because he knew the answer wouldn't be simple. The roads are a mess right now, he said. The storm hit hard. My truck can handle a lot, but not mud this deep. If I try to drive, we might end up stuck, or we might bounce around too much and hurt your ankle more. Marina's eyes widened. So what do I do? I can't stay here forever. You won't, Elias assured her. But for now, you need rest. And once the ground dries a bit, I'll take you to a doctor.
How long will that take?
She asked, her voice rising with worry. Maybe a few hours, he said. Maybe until late afternoon. Marina lowered her head. I can't wait that long. You don't have a choice, Marina. Your ankle won't let you walk, and the roads won't let us drive. She swallowed hard. I just don't want to be a burden. Elias leaned forward. You're not a burden. You're a person who's hurt. Anyone would help you. Marina looked deeply into his eyes, searching for any sign of annoyance or impatience. She found none. Only concern, the honest, straightforward kind that didn't demand anything in return. Still, she tried to sit up straighter. Maybe I can still try to walk to the road, she whispered. If you just wrap the ankle tight, I can push through the pain. Her voice shook, but her determination didn't. Elias stood immediately. No, he said firmly. You're not walking anywhere. She opened her mouth to argue, but he lifted a hand to stop her. I saw you fall when you were trying to stand. If you push through the pain now, you might hurt it so badly that you won't walk properly for weeks. I won't let that happen, Marina bit her lip, please. Just make it quick, she said again, but this time it was not about pain or walking. It was about her fear of becoming dependent on someone she barely knew. Elias understood. He sat down again, his expression serious. I will take care of you, he said carefully. Quick, slow, whatever you need. But I won't let you make it worse. Her eyes softened. She nodded slowly. He reached for a first aid kit, opened it, and began to carefully bandage her ankle. His hands were steady, slow, and gentle, far gentler than she expected from a rancher who worked with heavy tools and large animals. You're good at this? She said. Elias gave a small smile. Growing up on a ranch teaches you a lot about injuries. Animals get hurt. People sometimes get hurt too. Someone has to know what to do. When he finished wrapping her ankle, he stood up again. But now another heavy decision weighed in his mind. One, even more difficult than dealing with the muddy roads. Should he call emergency rescue services? He had never done that before. He always prided himself on solving things alone, fixing fences, caring for animals, handling emergencies with his own hands, Calling for outside help felt like admitting he couldn't manage on his own, and he had always feared being seen as someone who panicked or overreacted. But Marina wasn't like a fence or a piece of equipment. She was a person, in pain, depending on him. He hesitated for a long moment, looking at her ankle. Looking at the muddy land outside, looking at the fear hiding quietly in her eyes, Marina noticed his silence. "What are you thinking?" Elias exhaled slowly. "I think I should call the rescue team." Marina's eyes widened. "No, that's too much. Please, I don't want to cause trouble." "It's not trouble," he said. "It's the safest way. They can get here with proper medical help. They have equipment that can handle the mud better than my truck." "But Elias, Marina," he said softly, "you need help. Proper help." She looked down, defeated by her own injury and his steady courage. "I just don't want you to go through all this trouble. You didn't ask for this," he said. "And I'm not doing it out of duty. I'm doing it because it's the right thing." Marina swallowed hard. Something warm spread through her chest, a feeling of safety she had not expected to find today. Elias walked to the landline on the wall. His ranch had poor cell service and dialed the emergency number. As the phone rang, he felt his heart thump harder than it did during any rodeo he ever watched. When the operator answered, he spoke clearly. "I have an injured traveler on my ranch. Severe ankle sprain. Roads are muddy. We need help." He gave directions slowly and carefully. The rescue team confirmed they would arrive as soon as possible. When he hung up, Marina stared at him with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "You really did it," she said quietly. Elias shrugged lightly. "It wasn't unthinkable." "But it is," she insisted, her voice softening. "Most people would have tried to send me away, or leave me to figure things out alone. Not on my watch," he said firmly. "You're hurt. That's enough reason." A long silence followed, not uncomfortable, filled with understanding. Neither of them needed to speak aloud. After a moment, Elias stood again. "You should eat something. You look tired." "I'm fine. You haven't eaten, have you?" he asked. She looked away, embarrassed. "Not since morning." "That's not fine," he said. He walked to the kitchen, pulled out ingredients, and began cooking a simple meal: scrambled eggs, toast, and warm soup. Marina watched him move calmly, amazed by how naturally he shifted from rancher to caretaker. When he brought the plate to her, she accepted it shyly. "You didn't have to make all this." "I did," he said simply. "You need strength." She ate slowly, each bite warming her body. Elias sat nearby, pretending not to watch her too closely. But he noticed the way her shoulders relaxed, little by little, as if his home, or maybe his presence, made her feel safe again. The rain outside faded into a light drizzle. The sky brightened. The world slowly returned to calm. Marina set down her empty bowl. "Elias, thank you for everything." "You don't have to thank me," he said. "But I want to," she insisted gently. "Nobody has ever helped me like this." He looked away, his throat tightening. "I'm just doing what anyone should," Marina smiled. Not everyone would. He didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he busied himself cleaning the dishes. Marina watched him, wondering how someone so quiet could carry so much kindness. Minutes later, Elias checked the windows. "Rescue team should be here soon," he said. Marina nodded. Something inside her tightened. She wasn't sure if she wanted to leave just yet. The ranch, the warmth, the gentle care. It felt strangely comforting, as Elias stood by the window. Marina studied him silently, the strong shoulders, the careful movements, the way he always tried to hide his worry behind simple words. She didn't say it aloud, but she felt it deeply. She had met a rare kind of man today, a man who froze for a moment when she begged for help, but then acted with more heart than she ever expected from a stranger. The sound of tires crunching over wet gravel reached the ranch before the vehicle became visible. Elias and Marina both turned their heads toward the window. A white rescue truck slowly approached, moving carefully over the soft ground that the storm had left behind. Mud splashed lightly beneath the wheels as the vehicle stopped near the porch. "They're here," Elias said quietly. Marina felt her heart beat faster. She had been waiting for help, yet now that it had actually arrived, a strange heaviness settled inside her. Not fear, but something she couldn't quite understand. Maybe it was because she knew her time in the warm safety of Elias's home was about to end. The rescue team climbed out with medical bags in hand. Two paramedics, both wearing rain jackets, stepped onto the porch. One of them, a tall man with glasses, knocked on the door. Elias opened it immediately. "You called for assistance?" the paramedic asked. "Yes," Elias replied, stepping aside. "She sprained her ankle badly. Roads are still muddy, so I didn't want to risk driving her to town." The paramedic nodded. "You did the right thing. Let's have a look." They moved toward the sofa where Marina sat. She straightened up, feeling nervous, as the paramedics knelt in front of her and gently examined her ankle. Their hands were professional, firm, yet careful, checking each part of the injured joint. Marina winced only once. "You're lucky," the paramedic said. "It's a serious sprain, but not a fracture. With proper rest and treatment, you'll be fine." Marina let out a shaky breath of relief. "Thank goodness. You'll still need medical care," the second paramedic added. "We'll take you to the clinic in town. They'll give you a proper support brace and instructions." Marina nodded. Though she couldn't stop her eyes from drifting to Elias, the man who had carried her through mud, opened his home, made her food, and stayed by her side while she was scared and in pain. The paramedics prepared a lightweight stretcher, something designed for situations exactly like this. But when they tried to help her stand, Marina instinctively reached out to Elias instead, her fingers brushing the sleeve of his shirt. "You okay?" Elias asked gently. She nodded, embarrassed but comforted. "I'm fine. Just nervous." "You'll be all right," he reassured her. "They'll take good care of you." Marina allowed the paramedics to assist her onto the stretcher. As they lifted her gently, she felt a mix of sadness and gratitude. Sadness, because she didn't want to leave the one place where she felt unexpectedly safe. And gratitude, because this quiet rancher had stepped into her life exactly when she needed help the most. As they carried her outside, Marina looked back at Elias. He followed them to the porch, his hat pulled low to block the drizzle, his boots sinking slightly in the soft ground. Before they loaded her into the rescue truck, Marina reached out a hand. "Elias, thank you for everything." He stepped closer, his face softening. "Just get well," he said quietly. "That's what matters." For a brief moment, neither spoke. The storm clouds overhead had almost parted, letting in a thin beam of sunlight that landed gently across Marina's face. She gave him a small, heartfelt smile, the kind that said more than words could express. "We'll take care of her," Elias nodded. "Take her safely." The truck door closed, and seconds later, the engine started. Marina watched him through the window as the vehicle began rolling forward. Elias stood still, hands in his pockets. As the rescue truck slowly drove down the muddy trail, even after the truck disappeared behind the trees, he remained on the porch, staring at the path it had taken, as if part of him hoped it would turn back. At the clinic, the ride to town was slow due to the mud. But the paramedics did their best to keep the journey smooth. Marina lay back against the seat, her wrapped ankle elevated. Her mind wasn't on the pain anymore. It was on Elias. She replayed every moment, his calm voice when she panicked, the gentle way he carried her, his quiet patience while she rested in his home, and the unthinkable decision he made, calling rescue services. Even though he clearly preferred handling things alone, how strange, she whispered to herself. How can someone I just met feel so reassuring? At the clinic, the doctor confirmed the sprain and placed her ankle in a firm brace. She was told to rest for several days, avoid putting weight on the foot, and follow up if pain persisted. But her mind wasn't on the medical instructions. It was on the ranch, the warm living room, the steady voice of a man who rarely spoke, but said enough through his actions hours later. Elias's Ranchelia spent the rest of the day quietly repairing storm damage, but his mind wasn't on the work. Every time he hammered a nail or tied a loose wire, he wondered what Marina was doing if she had reached the clinic safely. If her ankle hurt less, if she was scared or alone. He tried brushing off the thoughts. "She's just someone I helped," he told himself. But deep down, he knew it felt like more. Not romance. Not something dramatic, just a connection he didn't often feel with strangers. When the sun began setting, he stepped onto the porch again. The ranch stretched out in quiet beauty before him, but something was missing. Or maybe he was simply noticing the silence more than usual. He rested his hands on the railing. "I hope she's okay," he murmured. The next morning, soft knock echoed on the ranch door the following morning, gentle but clear. Elias was in the kitchen pouring coffee when he heard it. His eyebrows rose. No one visited the ranch unannounced. He set the cup down and walked to the door. When he opened it, he froze. Marina stood outside, leaning carefully on a crutch, her ankle wrapped in a new brace. The rescue truck had dropped her at the roadside earlier. She had taken a slow ride back in a neighbor's vehicle because she insisted she had a visitor to see. Her eyes brightened at the sight of him. "Good morning," Elias blinked. "Marina, what are you doing here?" "You should be resting." "I am resting," she said with a playful smile. "Just resting here instead of there." Elias moved aside immediately. "Come in." She stepped inside carefully and looked around the room with familiarity, like she was returning to a place that had already become a memory. "You came all the way back here," he said quietly. Trying not to show how surprised he truly was, she nodded. "I wanted to thank you properly. Yesterday I was too shaken to say everything I wanted." "You thanked me enough," he replied. "No," she said firmly. "I didn't." Marina moved to the sofa where she had rested the previous day and sat down gently. She looked up at him with honest, calm eyes. "You didn't just help me walk. You didn't just give me shelter. You made me feel safe at a time I was scared and helpless. You treated me with kindness when I was a stranger. And I wanted to come back and say, thank you, truly." Elias felt a warmth spread slowly across his chest, a rare, deep warmth that he didn't know how to respond to. "You don't have to say all that," he said softly. "But I want to," she replied. "Some people leave an impression even after just a few hours. You're one of them." Elias lowered his gaze, both humbled and touched. "I'm glad you're okay." Marina looked around. "You're home." It felt peaceful. Even with the storm outside, I felt like everything would be fine, just because I was here. Elias swallowed. "I'm glad you felt safe." A long moment of comfortable silence passed. Then Marina smiled shyly. "I also brought something." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small container. "Soup," she explained. "Since you cooked for me yesterday, I thought it was only fair that I bring something in return." Elias took the container slowly, almost as if it were something fragile. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," she said softly. "But I wanted to." Stood still, unsure what to do with all the kindness she was giving back. He wasn't used to receiving anything in return for helping someone. Marina looked at him again, her voice gentle. "You know, yesterday I kept saying, please, just make it quick. But the truth is, I'm glad you didn't rush anything. You took your time. You helped me the right way." Her words sank deep into him. Settling somewhere he didn't expect, Elias finally smiled, a small, warm smile that reached his eyes. "You're welcome, Marina, truly." She leaned back on the sofa, relaxing. "I think I'll sit here a little while, if that's okay." Elias nodded. "You can stay as long as you want." And so, without planning it, the ranch that had always been quiet and lonely felt different that morning. Warmer, lighter, filled with something new. A soft connection lingered in the air, gentle but unmistakable. A stranger had arrived hurt and scared, and had left with safety, comfort, and a memory she couldn't forget. A rancher had frozen in worry when she begged for help, but had acted with a heart stronger than he ever realized. And now, in the calm sunshine of a new day, they sat together, not strangers anymore, but to people whose paths had crossed in a way neither expected. Sometimes, life sends someone at the exact moment you least expect, and exactly when you need them the most.